All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be breaking down the Sunday night showdown between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Green Bay Packers. Yes, the Aaron Rodgers revenge game. Going to be a fun one. Let's go ahead and break it down. So, as always, I'd like to start off with a quick game preview, guys. So, looking at the game total, about 45.5 total points here, with the point spread being a pretty close game in favor of the Green Bay Packers winning by 3. I think the biggest kind of question mark is how Aaron Rodgers is going to play against his former team, and it's a fair question. I could see two outcomes. Either he doesn't show up at all or he's going to be dominating, and that's kind of going to reflect, I think, the DFS strategy. Either Aaron Rodgers playing extremely well or he's not. It's literally going to be one of the two, and this does seem like a spot where he probably would go off. Don't get me wrong. We saw what he did against the Jets, but the Jets was a game in which it was actually a true revenge game. If you listen to some of the quotes from Rodgers throughout the week, he hasn't really seen this as a revenge game. He kind of knew the situation. He was very professional about having to move on from the Packers. And I would say his attitude really thus far this season has been pretty spot on as well, just in general and enjoying football. So I don't think it's like necessarily revenge motivation, but he does want to play well. And then we do need to talk about the Green Bay Packers injuries, because the Packers are probably the team we want to target the most, just because they are all drawing great matchups, especially kind of for their studs, but they are pretty banged up at the receiver position. So Matthew Golden is currently questionable. If he were to sit, Christian Watson would actually be someone we are looking at, but Golden is expected to play. Okay, so we're really not too worried about that. Jaden Reed is still up, but yeah, guys, Christian Watson is expected to play. I do wonder just how many snaps he's going to end up playing, but my kind of expectation is he's just going to fall into the Dontavian Wicks role. Okay, so probably going to be looking at around 30% of the snaps. If they're playing from behind, he might be forced into playing 50% of the snaps. But typically speaking, the Green Bay Packers are pretty slow about bringing players back from injury. So we are not expecting a full snap share from Watson. And assuming that Matthew Golden is going to be good to go, he makes for kind of the best captain play where we might not be playing him in the flex. That's something I consider a decent amount for showdown slates. I think the upside's undeniable with Matthew Golden. If you look at all like the metrics besides his stats, which sounds stupid to say, but like separation stats and whatnot, he's like performing as the best rookie receiver thus far. And again, I'm not saying he is the best. I think you could obviously say Emeka Egbuka, McMillan's actually looked great as well. All three of them have been pretty good on film. Let's just put it that way. It would not be shocking at all to see him have a good game in this matchup against the Steelers. What was weird in the last game is the first drive, they just peppered Matthew Golden. He got 3 receptions in that, and then basically nothing for the rest of the game. So kind of strange there. Him and Jordan Love just need to connect on a downfield play. And honestly, with Christian Watson being back, if you guys have followed the Packers at all, you know that he's kind of been the make or break point in this offense. You look at their production with him on the field and off the field, it's like 4.5 points. I would have to double check it, and you can't exactly get the data set for this season just yet, but it's been like 4.5 points. They significantly drop off in terms of their offensive production with Watson off the field, which is strange. So I think him being back is just overall going to be good for the offense. Now, the issue with the Packers is they do tend to spread out the football throwing it wise. Like Tucker Kraft has been one of the best tight ends in the league thus far this year, guys. And we're seeing last game he ended up with 10 targets. That was great. Prior to that, 2, 5, 4. The issue is he's just not getting enough targets. I will say though, he does make for a great play just in general. He's been very productive. I think you could play him in the captain spot. I do think Romeo Doubs is going to end up being a very safe play. Look at the target share for him, guys. 8, 9, 8 over the last 3 games. Been very good there. Obviously, this is a matchup where you are going to be throwing the football, but let's not sell Josh Jacobs short. Okay, he was banged up coming into last week. He ended up playing only about 55% of the snaps last week. He still ended up being a stud, getting 18.8 DFS points. Now, he did get 2 red zone touchdowns, which this is why they brought in Josh Jacobs. This is what I talked about last year in regards to I really liked Josh Jacobs for his over rush touchdowns last year for season long, and Jordan Love for under his passing touchdowns last year. The reason why is because 3 years ago, they were trusting Jordan Love a little bit too much in the red zone, okay? And so it's been a good mix of that. So the issue that I have on this slate is in regards to Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love. It's either Jordan Love is getting the passing touchdowns or it's Josh Jacobs. And it's to the point where I probably want to play one of them in the captain spot, and if I'm not playing the other, I might just not end up on them. Okay, that's the difficult part about this slate, because I could easily play a Jordan Love in the captain spot, and maybe we get this game, the game that he had against Dallas, in the game against Washington. Sure, we could easily get that. And then we're going to be good because we're getting Tucker Kraft, Romeo Doubs. We can even get Matthew Golden or Christian Watson in there. I think that ends up being a good route to go. The issue that we have, again, is it's a logical pivot off of Jacobs to get to some of the other Steelers players. And then that being said, we have still seen Doubs and Tucker Kraft be productive with Jordan Love not necessarily going off. The biggest difference is he has not really needed to throw the football over these last several games, and they might not need to again against the Steelers if, again, we're seeing Aaron Rodgers not play as well as he really has. So Josh Jacobs, again, captain play. It's not like we're not going to play him in the flex, but I'm just saying in the realm of possibilities, I think that ends up being a decent strategy to go with to not play Jordan Love in the flex. So if you're like saying the lineup builder, so I think it's kind of as simple as this. So like when a lineup includes Josh Jacobs in the captain spot, I would say in maybe 45% of the builds, we do not get to Jordan Love. But I think even the better route to go would be in lineups with Jordan Love, we get to at least 2 of, and then we're probably just looking at Tucker Kraft, Golden, and then Romeo Doubs. I think that's a better route to go, and I would actually put that about 100% of the builds. I think that's the best kind of grouping to go with there for the Packers. And then real quickly, just to mention, guys, it really doesn't matter to me. They're both the same price. Brandon McManus probably going to be active in this game. If he's not, we could just look at the backup kicker who's been very productive for the Green Bay Packers thus far. It's funny, they couldn't find a kicker for several years, and now all of a sudden they have 2 pretty darn good kickers. But either way, one of them are going to be in play, especially on this slate. I really think they're actually like the best Packer value that we're getting. Sure, Emmanuel Wilson could catch a touchdown. Maybe Malik Heath actually is a little bit more involved than we're expecting. Savion Williams might get a catch or 2. Same thing with Luke Musgrave or even John Fitzpatrick. They're all just shoulder shrug plays. I wouldn't necessarily feel the need to go out of our way to target them. Now we're going to jump on into the Pittsburgh Steelers, guys. So the Pittsburgh Steelers got a little bit healthy with Calvin Austin being back, and some people might not really realize he is kind of a big factor in this offense. He's a shorter speed guy for sure, but he can get open quickly, and he's kind of the player that Rodgers tends to like to throw the football to. So I do think he ends up being a pretty safe play for us on this slate. We have seen him pop off in half of his games thus far. Obviously touchdown dependent there, but would not be surprising to see him end up having a good game in this game. But I do think we are going to be targeting DK Metcalf a decent amount. He should get peppered with targets. The Green Bay Packers secondary has been very interesting thus far this year. And really, their play has been predicated on whether or not the refs are throwing flags on Micah Parsons. That's basically it. Like, when Micah Parsons is getting held, if they throw it, the DBs are going to be good. We saw against Dallas specifically where they weren't throwing it, and then Dallas was able to be very productive on offense. That's not to take anything away from Dak in that game. He has been playing so good, guys, so good. I'm very interested to see what Dak will do against Denver today, which is his most difficult matchup. Anyways, DK Metcalf ended up kind of being a pretty solid play. I do like into both DK Metcalf and also Calvin Austin, which is vastly different from the strategy that I gave you guys last week with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which albeit probably is going to be the approach we should go with, especially if we are searching for value. Okay, so if we're searching for value, all the Steelers tight ends are firmly in play. It was weird, guys. On the last Steelers showdown slate, I was like, yes, this is a crazy slate. We have 3 tight ends that we could be targeting on the slate, and they all logically make sense. We got Jonnu Smith, we got Noah Fant for Cincinnati, and we also have Darnell Washington. All 3 that we should be targeting. Heck, we could play all 3 of them in a build. They all scored a touchdown, and then Pat Freiermuth broke the freaking slate. It was like, come on, to nail a slate as much as I did in that Steelers Cincinnati game, and then to have Pat Freiermuth do that was like very tilted there, very, very tilted there. Now, I do want to call out the personnel for last week, guys, because they really just ended up going with more of a 12 and 13 personnel set just a bunch of the time, really trying to get Jaylen Warren going. Now, last week we knew that was how you would attack the Bengals was via the run game. Jaylen Warren ended up being one of the better plays as kind of expected. But look at the snaps, guys. This is insane. 70% for Smith, 65% for Pat Freiermuth, and then Darnell Washington, 63%. So the issue that we're going to have here is they all got a decent amount of targets, 6, 6, and 5. I think Washington probably is the most likely to score or get a red zone target. I should put it that way. But he's not going to have a high yardage total typically. I do like the idea of setting a rule where we're trying to get to one of these tight ends in, let's say, 70% of our builds. If you're doing 150 lineups, I think that ends up being a good idea, because chances are one of them is going to have a good game, especially in this matchup against the Packers, where that has been their weakness. And so, although I do really like Calvin Austin as price tag, I think getting to one of the tight ends instead, getting that value does end up making a decent amount of sense. That being said, if you're playing Calvin Austin, then you're probably not getting to DK Metcalf, and then you could easily get to one of the tight ends instead. So I think Smith is easily the safest. We have 7.5 left over here. Let's see who we can get to. Golden. I think this ends up actually being a pretty decent first look build there for you guys. I do think we probably want to get to McManus or their backup kicker there for the Green Bay Packers, but this ends up being a pretty darn solid starting point for the builds that we're getting to. Maybe instead of Calvin Austin, if you guys are worried about that, you could just simply get to, let's just put McManus in there for now instead, and then maybe you don't like Matthew Golden. I was hoping we could get to DK there. Let's see, can we make this work? I don't like the idea of not being on both quarterbacks here, but let's just see. Tucker Kraft and the captain, and then then we can make that work. So not a terrible idea there as well, but this is another interesting slate here with the Steelers where it does, and the Packers for that matter, it does seem pretty straightforward who we should be on. It's just getting the correct lineup combination, to take down a GPP. So let's go ahead and see what the 9-to-5 lineup builder is going to tell us are some of the best builds to play for this slate. So let's just go ahead and kind of show you guys what I'm thinking about from, a fantasy points perspective here. So I do think, probably want to match the ownership of Jordan Love. I could see him actually coming in a little bit lower than that, but I think that ends up being a good route to go in general. Rodgers, again, I don't know if we necessarily need to get to him that high. I will say I'll probably cap his max exposure about 55%. I think he ends up being a great play. It's just with his price, it's a little bit more difficult to get to him. For Jaylen Warren, I will set a min of about 20. I don't mind being underweight on him. Again, just because the way you attack the Packers is going to be throwing the football, I think, in this game. They've been very good at stopping the run. I do expect Warren to get a decent amount of work, though, in the passing game to kind of negate that. Again, I do like Josh Jacobs a decent amount, probably 50% here as a min exposure. And then from there, I don't necessarily think we need to get to any of these. I'm probably just going to click off of all of them. Maybe Wilson. I don't mind Brooks as well, but we're going to cap this at maybe 5% for both of them. I don't think we need to go crazy with either of them. Receiver wise, this is where it gets interesting because it seems like people are just not getting to the receivers here on the slate. I don't hate that, but at the same time, I think we want to be overweight. So Calvin Austin's going to see his ownership pump up a little bit more here. I think we want to get to him about 15%. I want to be overweight on the receivers here. So this is where I'm going to try to get to the leverage spots here. Watson at probably 3%. Don't need to go crazy with him. We know Wicks is going to be out. I don't mind Skoranek as like an extreme punt play, just value wise, but nothing too much there. From there, I think we're good. And then tight end wise, yeah, this is tough. I am going to do this rule. So I want at least one of, let's do Pat Freiermuth. I mean, this is crazy, right? I mean, Arthur Smith, just awesome stuff here for him. And then Smith. I want at least one of them in all the builds, probably. And again, that might be a little bit too high. It could end up changing that a little bit there, but they're all solid plays. And you got Tucker Kraft looking like a great play as well, guys. He's just in a great spot. I'll be 35% on him. I think, again, Jonnu Smith, easier play there. And then the other two I'm kind of okay getting to. We'll do 25 max exposure for Freiermuth. And then Washington, he is a little bit too touchdown dependent. We'll do 15% for him. Kicker-wise, I'm going to take off the Packers backup kicker. Again, I'm assuming that McManus is going to play. And so we'll get to 40% of him, 15% of Boswell. And so now we kind of have it manipulated the way we'd want. And so let's go and just see, guys, what the top lineup is right now, projection-wise. I don't necessarily love Kenneth Gainwell in the flex, so all the top lineups are seemingly punting there. Again, I'd rather get to one of the tight ends there, but it is getting to a bunch of Jonnu Smith there, or just, again, because I put in that rule, one of the tight ends for Pittsburgh, which, again, I'm fine with. Romeo Doubs seems like a plug-and-play per the data. It is getting to a lot of Josh Jacobs, again, and Jordan Love. Again, I don't know if we necessarily need to do that. I don't love that, to be honest with you. So projection-wise, I get it, but also it does worry me. But we are seeing a lot of kind of high floor builds here in general. What's the highest projected ownership build right now, as well as chalkiest build? I would say probably Rodgers and the captain, then Jacobs, Warren, Boswell, McManus, Smith. That makes a decent amount of sense there as well. So I think that ends up giving you guys a pretty darn good starting point for this slate here. And obviously, I think it sets you up pretty well. It's a fun slate. Hopefully, you guys enjoy it. I do want to call it, if you guys do want access to any of the tools that you saw throughout this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Guys, you can get access to all the fantasy golf tools, all the NFL tools, all the basketball tools, and all the prop tools for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Guys, take advantage of that. Again, all the tools are available for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Appreciate you being here. Good luck with all of your lineups. And if you're placing some prop bets, good luck on those as well. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, comment your guys' favorite spot as well. Appreciate you being here. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.